Welcome to the Ticket Stand, where I give you the review for the biggest movie coming out this weekend, and when I tell you whether it's worth buying, worth watching, worth renting, worth waiting, or straight worthless. Let's talk about the biggest movie coming out on March 17th, 2023, which is Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods, directed by David F. Sandberg, starring Zachary Levi, Lucy Liu, Helen Mirren, Rachel Zegler, Grace Caroline Currey, Jack Dylan Grazer, and Djimon Hounsou. So let's start off with the story and the writing. So the story revolves around Billy Batson and his family. I think a couple of years later after the first film, where they're all superheroes, but they're not exactly doing it a good job. Where Billy himself is going through somewhat of an identity crisis, whether he feels like he's not being a good enough hero, whether he's leaving, his family's leaving him behind, and he doesn't know what he wants. And at the same time, we have the three daughters of the gods. I forget the name at the moment, but essentially they're wanting revenge for what has happened to them in the past, having their power stripped from them, and essentially being sealed off away with a magic staff that was introduced in the first film. And essentially now Billy has to take on the sisters, as well as also keep his family safe. Now, for the writing on the film, I felt like there were times where it was strong, especially balancing jokes and such, but at the same time, the jokes weren't as good as they were, especially considering the first film was very, very strong with it. And as far as the dialogue, some of it was good. I'll give it that. But as far as the story, especially its writing, yeah, this wasn't strong, especially considering how well the first one was when it came to the relationship of the family, as well as just the plot itself. It feels very similar to many different other superhero films, especially considering that we're really big inside the genre at the moment. And honestly, with the way the plot goes, as well as how the ending was done, I can't give it the praise that I wish I could, especially considering I was a really big fan of the first film, and also me being a fan of comic book films. Honestly, for the rating for the story and the writing, I'm gonna have to give it a 0 out of 2. So let's also get inside the characters and the acting. So for the characters, which is Billy Batson and his family, I felt that they were good. Well, I wouldn't say great, but good. Billy Batson himself, there's a disconnect when it comes to the younger version and the, magic version when he transforms. Because the younger version, he's supposed to be 18 in a couple months or weeks, and yet the Shazam version still acts way more childish than he should be, when the identity of Shazam is supposed to be him acting as the age. So for them to set him up as almost 18 while being Shazam and being way more childish than normal is kind of confusing, especially to me. Sorry, the light's blinding. As far as the other characters, I felt like they did a good job, especially the family members, like Mary Marvel and the other siblings. The one that really stands out at the moment from the film was Freddy, the brother from the first film, the one that was really obsessed with being a superhero. And the reason he stands out is because there are times where he's kind of a jerk, to say the least, because he starts to take the superhero thing to his head, just like how the Shazam did in the first film. However, he does it in a way where it's like, how are you gonna do this? And how are you gonna go about this when the first film you saw how he reacted? And it's like, I get you're getting somewhat of an ego trip because you just became a superhero, but at the same time, you learned from his mistakes. So, and that's where I felt off. And as far as the sisters, they felt like real sisters, where the siblings that argue a lot as well. But the only problem I had was that, as much as one of the sisters had the backstory of why they're doing what they're doing, the other sisters don't exactly have their motivation as to why they're doing what they're doing. And that's one of the things that I felt weird about. As far as the characters and the acting was good. It's just I felt the characters didn't stand out as much as far as there was separation of the age and the transformation, and also the sisters. While there was a bit of backstory to their motivation, I felt like there wasn't enough to follow why they're doing what they're doing. So as far as the characters, I'm gonna have to give it a 1 out of 2. So yeah, let's also get into the directing, the special effects, and the cinematography. Sorry for putting on the shades. It got way too bright that I couldn't see, and it was bothering me. So yeah, it's kind of a editing error. So when it came to the directing and the effects and the cinematography, I thought that was an aspect where they did shine. There was variety in the monsters and the beasts, the scenery that they set up, especially like in the castle of the gods. I want to say that was done well, and even the beasts, they were very, how would you say, they were very authentic to how they're originally described, instead of just, you know, hey, let's take a vivid imagery and just make it like that. That's one of the things I did appreciate. The cinematography was also good for the most part. The only gripe I would say I had was there are times where the shots and where they're set up, sometimes they were very, very awkward, and I just felt like for majority of the part there were times where the effects didn't blend well as the fact that sometimes it wasn't done well. So for me, I gotta say, for the directing and the cinematography, I'll give it a 2 out of 2. As much as I want to say that was a gripe, I'm not gonna take points off of it, because it was just like 1 or 2 parts, considering there was a whole movie. I'm gonna give it that. But yeah, there was one scene where there was a bridge scene where the heroes were coming to save all the citizens, and before the heroes came, there was one citizen that, like, you would see their back turn, and the acting on this was bad, because there was a scene where this lady was she had her back turned, and before the heroes came, she just awkwardly pointed up and said, "Oh my god, the bridge is collapsing!" Like just a random poke that was like slow, rather than acting like an actual panicking citizen where you're like, "Oh damn," and then just run, you know. It didn't feel believable, and it was awkward, but I'm not gonna cut it out, because as much as it's awkward, it's also hilarious when you get pointed out and how awkward it looks. So yeah, 2 out of 2. I'll give it that. So yeah, let's get into how well it incorporates the genre of the superhero films. Now, superhero films have always been there's been so much diversity within the superhero genre, where there's a western and a superhero film, there's a horror in the superhero genre, there's a political thriller inside the superhero genre. We've seen that throughout the years, and with this one, it's mythological and a superhero film, and that's one of the things I could definitely give it its praise. And one of the things that I felt was really, really funny, while at the same time what was well incorporated, was a little bit of the horror imagery within the film, especially considering that there were shots where you would see people getting murdered, and like not rated R type gore, but it's like, oh, you know that person is dead. And the fact that they set these shots up and cut away from it is like, it leaves to your imagination what's going on. But as far as what it does new with the superhero genre, it didn't do a lot new. It followed a safe formula. It kept itself in check, rather than going off the walls and exploring what made the first film work. And that's one of the biggest disappointments about the film, especially how good the first one is that this one, it didn't do a lot. So if I were to give it a rating for this one, it would be a 1 out of 2. So yeah, all that's left is the overall enjoyment. And for the most part, I did enjoy myself in the film. I'm not gonna lie. I definitely enjoyed the film. However, I didn't enjoy it as much as the first film. and I do feel like there's a bit of improvement that they could have worked on within the film. And I think one of the things that really, really took it down a bit for me was the ending, especially how it sets it up, and at first you think, wow, they're actually going for this. And then a Deus Ex Machina happens, and you're just like, oh, okay, so we are going for the happily ever after, rather than, you know, actually sticking with the ending and going about it how they went about it. And that's one of the things I felt like I wish they would have done, and it would have did better, especially with this film. So as far as my overall enjoyment, while the ending did give me a bit of a letdown feeling, I'm not gonna let the ending for this one affect my overall rating of enjoyment. So I'll give it a 2 out of 2. But yeah, with everything said, I feel like this film is a disappointment considering the first one was really, really good. This one, the characters felt a little bit mismatched with the circumstances. The villains, they were an improvement from the first one, but it wasn't enough to say they were a standout. And the jokes weren't as heavy hitting as they were in the first one, as well as some of the writing, the dialogue, and the story elements just weren't enough to wow me. So if anything, I gotta give it a 6 out of 10 as my final score. Honestly, I'd say wait for HBO Max, or just wait to rent it on Redbox if you really want to see it. You don't need to spend your money, especially with all the big movies coming out this month. We got Ghostface coming back in Scream 6. We got John Wick 4 coming out, and Creed 3. You can spend your money on those films, and then just save your money and wait for HBO Max for this one. But yeah, I would love to hear what you guys put down in the comments. Let me know whether you thought it was better than the first one, whether it was worse. Let me know if you liked the film overall, and I'd love some feedback on my videos, especially considering this one's mismatched editing, so I know I kind of messed up. But yeah, thanks for watching my video, and I'd love to hear what next big movie you would want me to review next week. So yeah, thank you for I gotta figure out my catchphrase at the end and the beginning. Take care, y'all.